Nearly 2,000 years ago, Mount Vesuvius buried Pompeii under 20 feet of ash and rock. Not great for the Romans, sure, but pretty neat for us, as we've since found some incredible artifacts preserved in this ancient city. The remains of the people of Pompeii are by far the city's most famous treasures. These shapes show the inhabitants of the doomed city as they were in their final moments, cowering in their homes, fleeing through the streets, or huddling together in the face of certain death. Strictly speaking, the quote-unquote bodies of Pompeii aren't really bodies, they're casts. During excavations in the 1860s, archaeologists discovered voids in the debris layer. They eventually realized that these voids were shaped like people. This is because some of the victims of Vesuvius had been sealed under a layer of ash and pumice cool enough to preserve their forms. The layer then hardened, leaving behind these chambers when the bodies decayed over time. The archaeologists soon realized they could pour plaster into these chambers and create casts that perfectly replicated the shapes of Pompeii's dead. Clever, right? Of the 1,000 or so sets of remains that have been found, a little over 100 have been turned into casts. Archaeologists are hesitant to create more as the plaster can damage the delicate remains of the bodies themselves, but that doesn't mean we can't learn more from what we've got. Today, researchers are able to locate traces of DNA in the chambers or on the casts in order to investigate the genetics of the victims. This has given us new insights into the characteristics of the individual victims, such as their gender, age, or even their appearance.
You will feel like that you are living the last moments of these people.
As Pompeii's artifacts show us, the Romans were as human as we are, for better or for worse. And one of the things they most enjoyed doing was writing or scratching graffiti on walls. Like modern folk, the Romans tended to write about what they happened to be thinking about at the time. Usually something sexual or scatological, although a handful of political statements and declarations of love made it in there too. Some walls of Pompeii warned citizens not to defecate or fornicate nearby, a reasonable request in most instances. On others, disappointed diners trash restaurants and point fellow travelers to bars in other cities. People, generally men, brag about their sexual exploits with members of both sexes. One man even bids farewell to women for good, having realized that he now prefers men. There are wanted posters, insults, and even the timeless classic, "So-and-so is here." These graffiti have proven to be invaluable as an academic resource, of course, but they're also counted among the most popular and endearing artifacts to have been found across the city. Yes, the casts of Pompeii show us how these people died, but the graffiti tells us how they lived. They're probably a little bit stale, but loaves of charred bread have also been unearthed at Pompeii. Organic artifacts like food are relatively rare finds at archaeological sites, as they're usually consumed by decay or scavengers. At Pompeii, however, the heat of the gases that flooded the city quickly carbonized the bread, rendering it safe from decomposition and quite unappetizing to any enterprising vermin. Today, Pompeii gives us a glimpse at the literal daily bread of the everyday Roman.
There is still the fingerprint from the baker's thumb.
The bread found at Pompeii appears to be panis quadratus, a type of segmented sourdough common in the region at the time. A typical loaf would weigh in at a little under 3 pounds and was probably mostly made of simple wheat flour, though extras like honey, seeds, and herbs may have been added too. The central hole appears to have had a string passed through it, which archaeologists believe may have helped consumers carry the bread or cut it into segments for sharing. Some food historians have even replicated the recipe of this bread. They describe it as a chewy whole wheat loaf, one that might go well with a rich autumn soup. Romans were expert producers of glass products, and a number of such items have been unearthed at Pompeii. Glass had been made and worked in the ancient Mediterranean for centuries, but the Roman glass industry appears to have developed fairly rapidly in the early 1st century. When the industry began to boom, Roman glass was sent all over the empire and beyond. As such, the discovery of glass at archaeological sites isn't really rare, but the intact artifacts at Pompeii certainly are. Glass seems to have been used widely at Pompeii, providing the materials for various household vessels and containers, as well as window panes, which had recently been invented when the city was destroyed. Pompeii was also a hub of the perfume industry of the Campanian region, and so its artisans needed glass containers to store and ship their products. Chemical studies of glass found at Pompeii indicate that even though fresh glass was available, a productive recycling system existed. We also know that at least one workshop in the city made objects out of blown glass, a Levantine innovation that was only a few decades old at the time of the eruption. Pompeii also produced garum, a sticky yet popular sauce made of fermented fish that the Romans ate and exported extensively. This stuff is a distant cousin of Asian fish sauce, and it's closely related to the fermented anchovy sauce colatura di alici, which is still made in Italy today. Garum was a big hit among Romans, but its production was banned in some areas because of its strong odor. As such, Pompeii's role as a garum producer would have brought the city both commerce and a degree of gourmet cred. One of the wealthy Pompeii residents whose home was excavated was a freedman named Aulus Umbricius Scaurus. Primarily, his wealth seemed to have come from his business selling garum and other fish sauces. The floor of his house's atrium bears tile mosaics portraying jars of this salty brown moneymaker, jars that are almost identical to the terracotta amphorae found throughout Pompeii. Surgical instruments found at Pompeii offer a valuable look into how medicine was practiced in the ancient Mediterranean. Most of the tools were found at a structure called the House of the Surgeon, but medical tools have also been found in various other parts of the city. Many of these tools were made of copper alloys, and while Romans did not yet understand germ theory, they did use copper in some medicine. The metal's antimicrobial properties may have helped to prevent infection in patients. Among the tools unearthed are a variety of vaginal speculums, very similar to those found in modern gynecologists' offices. Scalpels have also been found, as were a number of specialized tools called osteotomes, which were used to cut bones. Cups to capture blood during bloodletting have been found as well, along with cautery kits used to apply heat and stop bleeding when necessary. Archaeologists have also found probes and catheters, tongs, forceps, and other instruments for general poking and prodding. You've also got clysters, which are reusable enema administrators, as well as surgical scissors, which may have just been used to cut hair, since some classical authors describe haircuts as a medical procedure. Some 20 years after the destruction of Pompeii, the historian Tacitus wrote to a prominent Roman named Pliny the Younger to ask about the event. Pliny obliged, and the letter he sent back is the only first-hand description we have of the city's final days. Pliny describes the heroic efforts of his uncle Pliny the Elder to save people stranded near the city. He also reveals that his uncle had died from suffocation by gases emitted by the eruption. Pliny closes his letter by emphasizing that everything he writes he either saw or learned shortly after the eruption. He even gives the date to the disaster as August 24th.
On August 24th, in the early afternoon, my mother drew my uncle's attention to a cloud of unusual size and appearance.
Many of the artifacts found in Pompeii seem to contradict that last detail, though. For example, if Vesuvius erupted in August, why were some of the dead found in relatively warm clothing? Why were chestnuts and other fall crops found among the preserved foods in the city, and why did people have heating braziers out? Moreover, a charcoal graffito was found in 2018 that dates to mid-October, meaning that the eruption must have happened after that date. As such, scholars now suggest October 24th, not August 24th, as the date of Pompeii's destruction. So, why the discrepancy? Well, it's probably worth knowing Pliny's original letter has never actually been found, only copies and translations of it, which don't all line up with each other. It certainly doesn't help that the Romans called the 10th month in their year October, which literally means 8 month. At some point, a translator or scribe could easily have mistaken the two while copying Pliny's letter, throwing off the true date of Pompeii's destruction by a good couple of months. For a time, Pompeii employed a sophisticated system of water management. Initially, people in the area had built cisterns to catch and store rainwater, which remained a source of water for household use. By the time of Pompeii's destruction, however, the city was connected to an aqueduct that provided settlements in the Bay of Naples with water from a spring located 94 kilometers away. This made it possible for Pompeii's residents to enjoy running water in both homes and public spaces. Fixtures have been found in Pompeii that resemble modern faucets, and the fountains in upper-class homes were fed with water for household use. Pompeiians even enjoyed an early style of flush toilet, although, in fairness, the flush was manually provided by throwing in a bucket of water. Finally, a system of drains carried the city's runoff to the sea. Nothing is perfect, of course. Many of the pipes revealed in Pompeii were made of lead, like those used elsewhere in the empire. Ancient plumbers chose lead for such projects because it was easy to work and doesn't rust. Sadly, it's also extraordinarily toxic with no safe level of exposure. Still, let's be honest, getting sick from lead poisoning was probably the least of the Pompeians' problems. In Pompeii, Romans in a hurry could grab a quick bite at antiquity's equivalent of a fast food joint.
Either you come to the street or to the counter, see what they've got on offer in the dishes here, choose what you want, take it away.
Excavations in the city have revealed a number of businesses that seem to have specialized in quick, easy meals. These would likely have been enjoyed by the city's lower classes, as the rich have their own kitchens with slaves or servants to work in them. Decorated with frescoes, these snack bars feature a number of built-in spots for pots or dishes. Archaeologists have found traces of the grains, cheese, and olives you might expect to find in southern Italy, along with proteins such as fish, duck, chicken, goat, and snails, among others. Wine was probably a popular drink in Pompeii as it was across the empire, although the Romans usually diluted it with water to stop themselves getting drunk during the day. Oh, and we should probably make a quick terminological note here. The name thermopolium has recently caught on to describe these eateries, but this seems to be a joke word invented and used by the writer Plautus. Among others, eminent classicist Mary Beard doesn't care for this usage. Beard once noted on X that the contemporary term would have been taberna or popina. The Romans both loved and were greatly amused by sex. Many of the walls in Pompeii are decorated with frescoes that depict a range of sexual acts, with varying degrees of technical skill and explicitness. The acts depicted range from the relatively tame to the more outrageous, including orgies, mythical figures copulating with animals, and a significant number of disembodied phalluses. Some of the erotic depictions unearthed at Pompeii were housed in the National Archaeological Museum of Naples and intermittently concealed from public view from about 1849 to 2000, when the secret cabinet was finally opened to the admiration and amusement of the general public.